So today we're going to be talking about how to buy a house without a buyer's agent and what you should consider. So it's going to be a longer video. However, I do think it's information that can really help you as we go through these choppy waters. So if you're new to the channel, I'm a mortgage lender licensed in 48 states. My team's one of the top mortgage teams in the country for purchases. So we work with a lot of buyers. We work with a lot of buyer's agents, and we see a lot of stuff happen. So first of all, what's going on? If you haven't been paying attention, there was a NAR lawsuit, NAR. Google it, read about it. And basically the outcome of that is more transparency in the industry. So it used to be that if you were buying a house, you would say, hey, like, who pays my buyer's agent, or how much do I owe them? And the agent would go, oh, don't worry about it, the seller pays me. And you're like, cool, let's go shopping. Well, the lawsuit was because sellers were like, hey, we don't want to pay them. Why are we paying them? And now we're in this new world where, as a buyer, you will be negotiating and signing a buyer's agreement should you choose to work with an agent. So what that means is that there's 2 points of negotiation on these buyer's agreement. Number 1 is their commission, and number 2 is how long you're going to work with them, okay? But what I'm seeing in a lot of chat groups right now is I'm seeing people say, I'm not going to use an agent. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. You're not using an agent. How do you buy a house? Now, the first thing is always this. With an agent or without an agent, you need to get pre-approved. I'm not just saying that because I'm a mortgage lender. I am saying that because you are going to see more and more listing agents requiring a pre-approval, especially if you don't have a real estate agent before they give you access to that house. And honestly, I can't blame them, because if they're going to have to show up to let you in, they want to make sure you can actually buy the house. So yes, number 1, get a fully underwritten pre-approval. Licensed in 48 states, happy to help. I got to do a little pitching here, guys. So feel free to reach out. Okay, so you're fully underwritten, you're pre-approved. Now what? Well, you need to think about, if you're not going to do the buyer's agent, you need to go, okay, well, who's going to draw up any offers I make, and who's going to review the contract for me? Okay. And you may go, you know what? I'm going to do it, and you're going to download a contract online. You know, many states you can do that. You're going to put together the contract and you're going to present the offer, right? There's other people where they're going, you know what? I'm going to have a lawyer do that part. So they're going to hire an attorney who will draw up the contract. Still, the buyer's going to be presenting it to the listing agent, but they're going to have an attorney do the paperwork. So the first thing you want to ask yourself is, okay, am I going to be putting together the contract, or am I hiring an attorney? Okay. A lot of people are assuming that they're just going to be able to call the listing agent and the listing agent will put together the contract. That is so muddy right now, and I'm going to tell you why. There's certain states where you can't have dual agency, meaning the listing agent can't do both sides of that contract, right? The second thing is that you could be going straight to the listing agent thinking that you're saving money by not using a buyer's agent, but then that listing agent could be negotiating with the seller to pay additional money to represent you, but are they really representing you, right? The third thing is, if you're going, well, I'm sure the listing agent will explain it all to me. Why would they? Like, they work for the seller, right? If you're going in there, right? If I was buying a house as Jennifer representing herself, I would not expect the listing agent to assist with any of that. And I think we're going to see listing agents really push back. And the other reason is, they work for the seller. How am I going to get a good deal if they're like, that's what the seller wants, right? And that's what you need to think about. Like, if I was going to be looking at a house and negotiating it myself, I would be looking at, okay, the agent I'm going up against, the listing agent, how experienced are they? How many houses do they sell? You know, I would be reading their reviews, trying to get in their head, because I am now the negotiator, right? That's the thing. When you are not working with a buyer's agent, you are now the negotiator. And look, in some cases, you know, the buyer would have been a better negotiator. Other cases, there's some buyer's agents that are worth their weight in gold. But look, if you're going at it, you need to figure that part out. okay? Now, the next thing is, how do you figure out what a house is worth? So I was actually talking to my husband about this today, because in the UK, where he's from, they don't have buyer's agents. Only super wealthy people use buyer's agents. The average everyday person, the way that they buy a house is they call the listing agent shows them the house, and then the buyer, they send an email saying, hey, I would like to offer XYZ on the house. You know, these are my terms. And then if that's agreeable, then at that point, you know, they would get an attorney and the attorney puts the contract together. So with this, you've got to go, okay. And I said to him, I said, well, how do you know what the house is worth? Like, because a good agent, they have experience in the market. They know what houses are going for. They also know what they've negotiated for recently, and they're going to pull comparable sales. So I'm like, how do you know what to offer? And he goes, well, you know, a lot of it is seeing a bunch of houses and talking to agents and trying to get as much information as you can, but it's also going online and looking at everything that's for sale and looking at all the data that's available. Now, look, in the United States and most parts of the country, there's a lot of data available, but you're gonna want to review that, because assuming that the price the seller's asking is what the house is worth, you know, it's a dangerous assumption to make. And the thing to know about that is, look, if you're getting a loan, we're going to order an appraisal, okay? And if it doesn't appraise out, you know, depending on how the contract's written, you have a way to negotiate or get out, depending on how the contract's written. But, you know, if you have cash, like, you're going to have to do some research. Make sure you're researching to know what you think the house is worth, okay? So really important. And look, there are some people where literally they analyze it. And that's why I'm so torn talking about this, is because there's a lot of lenders that wouldn't do a video like this because they wouldn't want to upset real estate agents. But I see really good agents where I'm like, wow, like, you're worth it. And then I see others where I'm like, you are more of a problem than a help. And so I understand if someone's had a bad experience or they can't afford an agent and they're in a market where the seller's never going to pay for the agent, they're going to need to go this route, okay? So if you're going this route, you just want to make sure, like, okay, am I researching and writing the contract? Am I having a lawyer do this? In terms of access to the house, generally you're going to be calling the listing agent. I think that if you're representing yourself, open houses are going to be critical, because we don't know how listing agents are going to respond with showing the house. As a seller, I would expect my listing agent to show the house to anyone who called who was pre-approved, regardless of whether they were being represented by a real estate agent or not. However, in the real estate chat groups, I'm seeing some people say, well, we're not going to open the door unless another agent's representing them. And it's like, okay, that feels like a potential lawsuit. Or, you know, only open houses. So you want to keep your eyes on that. You know, beyond that, what do you need to keep in mind? Look, let's say that you see a house, you do some research, you love it, you call the listing agent, they let you in, you write an offer, they accept it. You know, at that point, okay, you're going to need to make sure you order your inspections, right? And the inspections you do are up to you. As a lender, we don't require specific inspections for most loans. However, if I'm talking to a buyer that I'm working with and they're like, Jen, do you think I should get this inspection? Of course I'm going to have that conversation, because as a lender and someone who's bought and sold many houses, yeah, I think you should get an inspection, right? So I do think that you are going to need a strong lender if you're going this route, because the worst thing would be you're doing this all yourself, right? And in many cases, people are going to be doing it themselves because they can't afford a real estate agent, or they're in a market where the seller's never going to pay for it. It's not going to be negotiable. So they don't have another option, right? And that doesn't mean you shouldn't get a house. Like, don't feel that way at all. It just means that you're going to do you're going to do the work that an agent would have done, and you need a strong lender, because you need someone who's going to be able to go, oh, this is weird. Nope. Wait, what? They said what? you know, I was looking at a Reddit forum. I spend too much time there, guys. I actually have a page. I'm going to build it out more. So check out my page, follow it. Let's see if we can get to 100. And this guy was talking about how he had his agent, his buyer's agent, had negotiated that there were going to be repairs done prior to July 27th. And the lender reaches out to the buyer to say, hey, we need this letter stating it's all been done. He calls his buyer's agent because the buyer's not in town. And the buyer's agent goes, yeah, I called the listing agent. They said they're still working on it. And so they go back to their lender and they tell them this. And the lender goes, what? Because the listing agent had given the lender receipts for work done. The work wasn't done, right? And that's the thing. So they're saying, wait, something's wrong. They gave us fraudulent receipts then, right? And the buyer's going, oh my gosh, the listing agent comes back and says, you have to buy this house, otherwise we're going to take your money, right? And the buyer's like, what do I do? And I'm looking at that and I'm like, your lender's awesome. They're the only one standing up for you. Based on everything you've said, the seller and the listing agent are trying to commit fraud. Your agent needs to stand up for you, or you need to get a lawyer or their broker involved now. Okay? Because here's the thing, like, look, if someone has a contract and a contract says XYZ has to be done, and if they don't do XYZ or they try to commit fraud, why would they get to keep your money? It doesn't make sense, right? But this listing agent's bullying and the buyer's agent isn't doing anything, and the lender's the only one standing up for that client. So you do want to make sure that if you're going at this alone or you're going at it with a bad agent, you have a strong lender. So look, I am licensed in 48 states. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not a strong lender. You know, go check out the reviews everywhere but Utah and Rhode Island. If you're in 2 of those states, one of my very good friends who is an excellent lender can help as well. Like, that's the world we're moving into. We're moving into a world where it's going to be the strongest buyer's agents, right? Ultimately, that's going to be who survives, the one that can prove they are worth, you know, the payment that they'll get. And the strongest lenders, because I think a lot of people are going to be going at this on their own. There's a lot of data available. You know, there's a lot of ill will towards real estate agents, but I do think you need a strong lender. Now, should that lender charge you more? No. You know, look, you can have a really good lender, a strong lender, and they'll still have competitive rates and fees. And in many cases, they'll beat the places that you thought would be a better deal. So I hope this video was helpful. Questions, comments, please feel free to reach out. If you're doing this, chime in the comments. Like, some people are going to be doing it because they think they can analyze the data better. Some people are going to be doing this because they don't have a choice. But overall, there's no reason you should be deprived of the opportunity to own a home. So I hope it was helpful, and I'm learning the number. If you want to reach out, 786-933-2077. If you call or text, it goes to me, Sandy, Alyssa, or Linda. Everybody's licensed, guys. They're all great. They'll give you good advice. Yeah, thanks for watching.